how can we then bring that capital into DeFi, right? How can we then support the stable coins of our ecosystem? How can we support the DOT token within Polkadot across different strategies? So you go to the asset manager, the share class, say, hey, I'm going to put dollars in. They'll purchase the underlying DOT. You can then collateralize against that DOT, bring stables into the ecosystem, convert them into, what is it, Holler, or put it into a nice strategy like Gigadot.
Gigadot for in retirement funds is what, what we want here,
That's
right?
it.
The launch team wishes you good luck and Godspeed.
Space Monkeys, blasting off with Dave Sedacca. He is the lead of the Polkadot Capital Group and heading up finance at Parity. We're very lucky to have him on the podcast, finishing up our series of Polkadot in the capital markets. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and we're in the iconic Washington Square Park, and that big monument right there, built in 1892, was for George Washington becoming the first the U.S. president.
It's a beautiful place and very
pretty cool, very lively,
colorful characters.
You see it all.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your connection with Polkadot. I guess Polkadot Capital Group is very recent.
Correct.
But you've been with Parity for how long?
Been with Parity almost a little over 3.5 years, early 2022.
Okay.
An old colleague happened to be doing some consulting work on the finance side, and I worked with him back in the day at a tech startup, and he said, hey Dave, I need some help to build out some structure in the team. Can you come hop on? And that's how I joined.
Did you have any experience with capital markets or VCs or anything like this previously?
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur. I've had a few different startups. I've worked at early, late stage startups, BlackRock, the big behemoths, and I get an understanding of how things work from a business perspective and how money flows. And I thought that convergence between tech and some of that finance background would be really cool journey into blockchain, right? I think being able to turn disruption into something that's real, and whether it's building products, whether it's kind of communicating with the capital markets folks, is super exciting.
What would you say like your specialty is when you join a team?
I'm a leader by heart. I listen, and I want to make sure that we're innovating and we're changing up the status quo. I think just because things are done a certain way in anything that we do doesn't mean that's always the right way, and I'm not afraid to kind of flip things on its head a bit. And I think that's really important when you come in and first assessing, getting to know how things operate, and then providing recommendations, thinking about how we can work more efficiently and more profitably, we'll put it that way.
3 years at Parity, obviously there's loads of opportunities in the world with your particular skills. What's it about Polkadot or Parity that keeps you around, keeps you interested, makes you want to commit this time of your life to this project?
Yeah, of course. And look, I think it all comes down to innovation, right? I think staying ahead of this, I've worked at late stage tech startups like kayak.com, innovating the travel space.
Sure.
Or I helped a company called Casper Sleep, where they're one of the first bed-in-the-box companies, helped them raise their Series D and then take them IPO. All that disruption and kind of wearing multiple hats and kind of charting new territories is something really interesting. And I saw that ability to kind of join Parity and be a part of that journey. And I got involved with digital assets, when I was at BlackRock, maybe say back at the end of 2017. I dipped my toes in it to get an understanding. I said, this is kind of really something. And
under the BlackRock banner?
Personally.
Oh, yeah,
personally,
gotcha.
Yeah,
okay,
personally,
okay.
yeah. So I worked on the investment sides at BlackRock, and a colleague of mine said, hey, we should check this stuff out, and started to dip my toes in a little bit, understanding what the technology was, and I saw that, wow, this could be something really cool, and just didn't think anything of it. I kept continuing on my journey in my career pathway, and then this opportunity popped up.
Heading up finances at Parity.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, of course. I know it could be many different ways, right? So it's all about kind of strategy. We have many different entities. We have a lot of people. So everything from organizational accounts payable to understanding our treasury, understanding how we do our books and records, dealing with taxes, dealing with the regulatory aspect of how we operate within each different business. And then thinking about budgeting and planning and forecasting, what is the strategy behind the numbers, right? So if we work as an organization and we have this plan for the next 12 months, okay, what does that mean, with the numbers behind it? How do we kind of achieve our goals, but also maintain a budget?
So we just finished this series with Polkadot Capital Group's help, actually, and your partner, Karen. She managed to hook us up with some Actually, 3 Johns, okay?
3 Johns.
John Squire, John Darcy, John Vincent.
That is correct.
3 Johns, 3 unique perspectives.
3
though.
Johns, yes. All amazing guys.
No, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, we've learned a lot from speaking with them and from listening to them here on the podcast.
Yeah.
The view of Polkadot from the position of these 3 gentlemen and probably a lot of their peers is a little, it's wanting, let's say. Let's say there's a lot of work to do there. There's a lot of relationships to rebuild.
Yeah.
And we've been hearing for several years, projects in the ecosystem, they have trouble attracting capital. The name of Polkadot even sometimes, I mean, despite this amazing technology and the incredible potential, there's this sort of tarnished reputation or something happening there. Let's work from the inside out. So maybe start with, what's your view of the capital ecosystem close to Polkadot?
Yeah,
we have
so SkyTel and Harbor are the 2 kind of ecosystem VCs.
Yep.
And then we have the other capital market partners that's holding down Europe, 265 Capital,
Okay.
that we work closely with. But I'm really excited to kind of bring Polkadot Capital Group to life. And it all started with me operating in Parity and kind of understanding, hey, we've got the operational aspect of finance in a really good position, and kind of being here in the US, seeing the regulatory clarity come to fruition. I hate to be complacent. I always like to keep going and having new challenges. And I thought, I had a really good opportunity to play that role in the US, to put this team together to not only educate the capital markets, but make a presence for Polkadot in the US. And I think that's something that, we've lacked, and there's a lot of capital, there's a lot of innovation, and there's a lot of teams that I think we can really revive the ecosystem here, and I'm excited to do it.
Okay, so what's the approach? How do you do it?
The first step of understanding and listening to, if you held Polkadot in your strategy in the past, why did you pull it, right? If you're a VC invested in a company in the US, are you still investing, or why aren't you investing? What is your interest that you want to kind of be a part of? And then it's also around, just access. When you're in the capital markets, it's all about the different products that allow you to kind of touch these digital assets, right?
Yeah.
You see that, Bitcoin and Ethereum have an ETF, right? You can have regulatory, you can have retail people holding this in their retirement plans.
Yeah.
But then you have asset managers that run different structured products, like a Bitcoin share class or Ethereum share class, and you can invest in that vehicle, right? And then you have these digital asset treasury companies, which have been all the rave this year, that people can get access to this as well, right? So it's having that diversity where, Polkadot isn't there yet.
This is what John Vincent from Wacom was talking about, the DATs. He said, who's heading up a DAT for DOT?
Yeah.
Do you know?
I don't know, and I'm not sure if that's going to be in the cards, but I think, what's really important, what are these DATs? Why are they created?
Yeah.
And, what is the end goal, of these? And I think a lot of these DATs, okay, you have an amazing management team, you can have a strategy, but, a lot of them it's called a NAV, right? So the value of the asset, and a lot of them are trading at a multiple of that NAV, right? And why is that, right? If these tokens are just kind of they're investing in the spot asset, what are they doing to differentiate it? What is the revenue that they're driving to kind of really build this up? And that's where I'm not, I'd say, bullish on that from a broader perspective, right? There's too many.
Right. So just to cover this, by the way, just make sure we all understand, a DAT is a company that you can invest in, and the company basically, its main business is holding an asset.
They'll work with the foundations of these tokens to get a discounted token, right? That they'll then hold, and then they'll allow for other people to invest. And a lot of it are hedge funds, kind of arbitraging, which means they're finding gaps in prices and kind of competing against each other.
Yeah.
But look, I think there are a few out there that are thinking about other revenue streams, right? Bringing value beyond just holding, the token and making a big wave of it.
Sure.
But my perspective is more, okay, let's look at these share classes. Let's think about how we can educate people on, it's not just a token, what's the value behind the token, and what is, just like a Google of the world, right? What is the infrastructure that builds that up? And then how can we then bring that capital into DeFi, right? How can we then support the stable coins of our ecosystem? How can we support the DOT token within Polkadot across different strategies?
Yeah, I think one of the things we're talking about here is really like access to the DOT token, because a lot of people with capital, they're not going to go and self-custody DOT. This is the problem, right? Again, what John Vincent was talking about, the institutionalization of these assets, making them accessible with a broad range of products. We have DATs, but then you also mentioned ETFs.
Yep.
Do you have any insight on what's happening with ETFs in America?
I mean, you'll see, I can't speak on, anything in particular, but you have seen the SEC come out with the general listings rule of what it takes to have an ETF, right? And I think recently you saw in the news that the DTCC just kind of listed DOT on there. And I think some of this criteria will kind of help evaluate which of these assets will be able to get approved. But who knows, because the SEC, the government just shut down. Yeah. And we don't know how long that's going to take. But we're here waiting on the sidelines to kind of see that how that evolves.
Yeah, the heels are dug in there.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we're holding.
Yeah.
What is an ETF technically?
Yeah.
How does that actually work, that product?
So it's an exchange traded fund. So essentially you'll have an issuer. They will then take in dollars in the US, and they'll go out to the market and then purchase the underlying asset. They will have dedicated custodians that will hold this asset, and then if and when staking is allowed in the US, they'll then work with specific node operators. They'll then stake that, and then the whole question now is around how do taxes work, not only for investors in the ETF, but personally too, when you bring staking and all that stuff into the mix.
Staking's not allowed?
Not yet.
What do you mean?
Yet. Yeah.
But I mean, doesn't Coinbase do staking or?
No, so in the actual exchange traded fund.
Oh, in ETFs.
Yes, in the ETF specifically.
I see.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other products that would be useful to the capital markets that we could be looking at?
Yeah, I think this is kind of something what I was touching on earlier around these structured products or share classes, right? How can we think about people contributing or paying dollars into a share class, and the yield or the return or the opportunity behind that asset is reinvested back into the ecosystem, right? How can we then start to kind of navigate out of the regular capital markets into DeFi to not only educate investors, but also kind of support the ecosystem?
Okay, so I'm going to buy shares, and then with that capital, you're going to go and put it in the hydration money market or something like this.
Exactly.
That's
so basically,
cool.
You go to the asset manager, the share class, say, hey, I'm going to put dollars in.
Yeah.
They'll purchase the underlying DOT, and then you can then collateralize against that DOT.
Yeah.
Bring stables into the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Convert them into Holler, or put it into a nice strategy like Gigadot, which has
Gigadot in retirement funds is what we want here.
That's
right?
it. That's
okay.
it. And and then the gateway there is really, the Polkadot Hub, right? What a lot of Nico and the Velocity team have been doing a lot of great work building the foundation there.
Yeah.
And we're excited to kind of partner and continue to evolve the space on, once you get the infrastructure in place, what's built on top of that? RWAs, bringing in liquidity, thinking about these different options. And something I've been working with investment advisors now is, hey, do you hold digital assets today? And some do. Right, and they start to navigate that. How do you think about retirement funds? And how do we kind of work with them to do some pilots on coming into the ecosystem? Right, finding all that opportunistic yield of understanding, what is Polkadot.
Very good.
Yeah.
Now, touching on the reputation piece a little bit. So we have access, that's one big bucket for sure. But then there's just awareness, and there's the story of Polkadot. At this point, what we need to build up is the comeback story of Polkadot, the re-education, the reintroduction. How does that look, and what kind of work do you see needs to be done? What kind of work are we undertaking?
Yeah, of course. And look, I think Polkadot from an education perspective has been fantastic. Being run by Bill Laboon and Raha, especially the Web3 Foundation, different developers within the Parity ecosystem too, on the technical level, right? And I think it's been fantastic, right?
Absolutely.
People that want to build the different hackathons that we do are amazing, but it's now moving a few layers up, right? How do we then resonate with the everyday person or the everyday institution that knows capital markets, but they don't know what DeFi is? They don't know the difference between Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Polkadot, right? And I think that's where I think Polkadot Capital Group can play a really strong position on being that educational layer, right? Telling them the difference between, why would you invest in Polkadot, right? This is technology that's been built for over 10 years, right? It was started by Gavin, who, built the EVM and Solidity smart contracts, right?
Yeah.
Why did he go create Polkadot, right? There's some gaps and there's efficiencies that were being missed. And I think that story that we can help evolve and elevate is really starting to resonate with people. we're speaking to different groups like John Vincent again and others, and they're excited, right? They heard about Polkadot, they know about the resilience of the tech that's been built. Now, let's build something real, and let's show them the scale of what we're doing. I mean, we have over 45 million transactions a month in the ecosystem.
I know, yeah.
Which is, no one thinks that. The second I just give them that one stat, they're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Or if I tell, OTC guys, hey, listen, Polkadot stablecoin transactions are like 0.4 of a penny.
Yeah.
They're like, oh wow, that's crazy. You go to Ethereum, you go to these other chains, they're just like shocked. So it is that education. It's about being there and kind of telling the story.
Yeah, a few other like little mind-blowing facts I've been dropping on this tour is just talking about hydration TVL growth from like 5 million to touching 500 million.
It's amazing.
That's a big one. Obviously, captain step supply is really interesting to people as well here. And then just some of the super bullish rollups that are coming online too, with like Hyperbridge and Mandala and these projects that just can't happen anywhere else.
Oh, 100%.
And I just don't know what's happening yet.
Yeah. And it's like, how are we utilizing this tech at scale, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of other ecosystems, it's still like a proof of concept. Anyone can do DeFi. Anyone can get an RWA and just sit on their chain to hit a metric.
Yeah.
But I think what really interesting about Polkadot is like, we're bringing all that to life and people actually using it at scale and using it for their business, right? And I think that's important key.
I think something that we've learned on this tour that we haven't really been aware of in the ecosystem, because you were pointing out rightly how great the education piece has been for technical. We've done the hackathons where we have a huge developer community and people are very excited about Polkadot there. Then when it comes to raising capital, there's this massive gap. Yeah. And I think that gap is even bigger when it comes to capital markets in the US. Yeah. There's been chatter about how important it is, but really my experience on this little tour here has just been witnessing how big that gulf is. It actually is a little bit intimidating. Of course, I'm very excited about your work and Karen's work as well. We're going to get Karen on the podcast as well.
She's been an absolute rock star, coming on board in early June, and kind of her background in TradFi and her network and her passion for kind of reviving and kind of telling the story. It's amazing.
So my question is, on the ecosystem side, from the retail people who are just enthusiastic about DOT all the way to the top, what kind of support do you need behind you to bridge that gap and to bring these important capital markets to Polkadot?
Yeah, I think it's just elevating the narrative, right? Let's all stay positive. I think, Polkadot's been around for a long time, right? Launched in May 2020. There's been a lot of wins, but there's been a lot of losses and failures too. But I don't think of it as failures. I think of just being too early, right? We learn, we pivot, we grow, we figure out how we can kind of use all these challenges to our advantage and just elevate that. And I think if we all come together as an ecosystem and think about the positivity of the future and the resilience of what we can build and the next phase of growth and what we're doing, with products and everything, that's going to be really strong. So I think let's all play nice in the sandbox and kind of we're all here to solve the same North Star, right? Mm-hmm. Bring this decentralization, bring this kind of focus to Web3 and moving, everything on chain.
What's the next 6 months look like for the Polkadot Capital Group?
It's going to be out there, at panels. I'm speaking at Hedge Week in New York City next week to really start to kind of break through these different audiences, right? We're going to be doing more of a series. We're going to be looking at doing quarterly investor outreach, working on proof of concepts with asset managers and others, and even tokenization. I huge shout out to our solutions engineering team at Parity, especially our data team at Parity, really help, all the data that I need to kind of make decisions and think about what we should focus on is really going to start to come to life, I think, with Polkadot Hub coming up and us bringing that value and liquidity into the ecosystem.
Who's funding Polkadot Capital Group?
So Polkadot Capital Group is essentially a division within Parity right now.
So it's from Parity?
Through the work that I'm doing at Parity, it's an extension of that with Karen.
Gotcha. And building up this new brand, obviously there's some legwork there too. Mm-hmm. What are you doing to build up the name, and how are you going to penetrate this very busy and noisy space and get Polkadot through?
Yeah, of course. When I thought about this and infiltrating the U.S. and talking about institution, everything, I going at it from a Parity perspective, the engineering company behind Polkadot, which has a really strong brand, Web3 Foundation as the the stewards of the ecosystem with grants and everything like that. And I said, okay, this isn't more of a marketing thing. You know, we need to ensure that we can resonate with the audiences that we're speaking to, and that was the birth of Polkadot Capital Group. So with that, we have a bunch of kind of different one-pagers that tell the story to specific audiences. We have PolkadotCapitalGroup.com website that's coming out, and it's going to be bespoke and storytelling for this specific audiences, along with a really cool timeline of where Polkadot was, where we're going, and a very curated dashboard, right? My data team is really helping me, and there's going to be storytelling within the graphs, right?
Good,
what do these numbers mean? What charts do I think are most relevant? To tell that narrative on why we're winning in this space and we're differentiated from others.
Cool.
Whether it's transactions, whether it's fees, whether it's the security of the chain, all these different things. I think the way we narrate it and we showcase it to people to digest much easier and kind of resonate across different things, I think it's going to be really strong.
All right, good stuff.
Great.
Really excited about your work. Obviously an area we need to work on, but I have a lot of faith in the Polkadot Capital Group and both of you, and all we're going to do is support you as much as we can. Thanks for coming on the show to share this.
Of course, Goose, and I'm really excited to have you on board with us and kind of being a part of this journey. We can't do it without the ecosystem and us all working together.
All right, we'll be there. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Awesome.